All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're breaking down a pretty wild story about a high-stakes public relations battle for the hearts and minds of young American conservatives, specifically their support for Israel.
So let's just start with a number, $7,000. Get this, according to the source we're looking at, that's the alleged price tag for a single social media post in a new influence campaign. Now that's a lot of money for sure, but believe me, it is just the tip of the iceberg in a much, much bigger story. You see, a payment like that is apparently just one piece of a massive, multi-million-dollar operation. And that immediately raises the big question, right? What is going on here? Why is there this urgent and very expensive push to influence the next generation of conservatives on this one particular issue?
Well, to get to the why, the source material zooms in on one of the most prominent figures in conservative media today, Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. His story is presented as a crucial piece of this whole puzzle.
And according to this source, things moved fast. It lays out this really rapid sequence of events. It kicks off in May when Kirk reportedly starts to publicly question unconditional support for Israel. By July, he's hosting a debate on Gaza at one of his summits, apparently going directly against the wishes of his donors. Just a month later, he's complaining out loud about being bossed around by funders. And then, boom, by September, he's said to have lost his single biggest donor. I mean, that is a dramatic fallout in just 4 months.
And this public statement right here, this is supposedly the moment it all just boiled over. The source frames this quote as the point where Kirk's frustration with all the pressure he was facing just burst out into the open.
So where was all this pressure coming from? Well, the document gets very specific. It points to a series of intense Zoom calls with some pretty heavy hitters. You've got venture capitalist Sean McGuire, Joshua Hammer from Newsweek, and the investor Bill Ackman. The source also names a rabbi who it describes, and this is a direct quote, as Kirk's personal Israeli handler, who was supposedly in touch with him almost daily.
Now here's the thing. According to the source, the Charlie Kirk story isn't just about one guy. It's actually a symptom of a much larger trend, a huge generational divide that's opening up.
And this chart really visualizes what's supposedly causing all this panic. You see here, the source claims that among Republicans over 40, support for Israel is rock solid, incredibly high. But then you look at conservatives under the age of 35, and that support is apparently just cratering.
And that growing gap is the whole ballgame. The source alleges that the Democratic grassroots is already seen as a lost cause, which is why the focus of this new PR battle has shifted squarely onto the conservative grassroots, and specifically the next generation. This, right here, is the new frontline.
So if you're facing that kind of generational split, what do? Well, the source details a new, really aggressive PR playbook, which brings us right back to that $7,000 post we started with.
The strategy is laid out in 3 distinct steps. First, you hire a top-tier political operative. Second, you recruit a whole wave of Gen Z influencers. And third, and this is kind of wild, you try to game AI algorithms to control the narrative. Now let's look at the alleged tactics. The campaign manager is said to be Brad Pascal. You might know him as Trump's former campaign manager. The budget? It reported $1.5 million a month. The targets are specifically anti-woke Gen Z influencers. And the battlefield isn't just social media. It apparently extends to AI, with a stated goal of controlling answers on platforms like ChatGPT.
So, when you take a step back and look at all this, what does it really add up to? Is this massive, very expensive campaign a sign of strength, or is it a sign of weakness?
Well, according to this source, it's absolutely not a sign of strength. In fact, it offers the complete opposite take. This entire operation, from the big-name hires to the influencer payouts, isn't a power play. It's being framed as a sign of deep anxiety. And to really hammer this point home, the source uses some incredibly powerful language, calling these actions the death rattle of a multi-billion-dollar Hasbara complex. Hasbara, for those who don't know, is a Hebrew term for public diplomacy, or, as critics might put it, propaganda. So the argument here isn't that this is a show of force, but that it's a desperate effort to save a narrative that's losing its grip.
And this leaves us with a pretty big final question to chew on. In an age of information overload, where influence is everything, are we looking at the new face of international diplomacy? A world where PR wars aren't fought in embassies, but through targeted influencer campaigns and AI algorithms. Is this the new front line?